Hello and welcome to is Destiny's Guide for Aiming in Overwatch. Today we'll be looking at basic aiming, and I'm going to be using Soldier. Oh, is this a tutorial? Let me leave that. We're going to go into the practice range and have a look at some exercises and some general ideas when it comes to aiming. So I come from playing a lot of Counter-Strike, and in Counter-Strike there's four main parts when it comes to aiming. So there's movement, which in Counter-Strike you would usually want to stop before you shoot because movement would hamper your aim. So you can see that my crosshairs are now short. When I start shooting, they become bigger. However, in Counter-Strike, they would always be they'd be bigger while moving, and they would come to a stop when you were also not moving. The second part is going to be flicking. That's going to be actually like getting into a position where you're aiming at the same thing. Let's say somebody's behind you, you flick fast to them, and you're aiming straight at them. That's flicking. Second part is going to be tracking, and that is when either you're moving. In this game, it's more or less when you're moving. In Counter-Strike, usually is when the person you're shooting at is moving. So, for example, if I go to one of these bots down here, when these guys are moving, I have to track that with my crosshair. And the last part of in Counter-Strike at least is I'd say is burst control. So there's a mechanic where whenever you're shooting, the longer you shoot, the more inaccurate you become. However, there's a pattern to the inaccuracy, so therefore you can compensate for it. This game, that doesn't exist. There's a little bit with, for example, Soldier and Bastion, where you just have to burst fire to a short degree, and then you will basically always have pinpoint accuracy. In Overwatch, there's, however, new concepts that come in. So with tracking, I'd say there's two different ones. So there's movement and there's tracking. So when you're moving and you're tracking. So as you can see right now, both me and I'm moving and my target is moving. And so therefore, I have to constantly be aiming. Flicking is always going to be present in a PC shooter. Maybe not when you're playing Winston. A little bit in case they're behind you and stuff, but you just don't really need to flick that much. So I feel that tracking and movement is more or less the hardest part. Spray control isn't really that important in this game, just because again there's only a couple of players that really need spray control. It's not very difficult. With Soldier you can basically shoot 3 bullets and then stop. Basically, you don't have to wait for your gun to come center gravity again, which is a common mechanic in different games. So, for example, if you have a burst fire gun, it'll have some recoil, and then the aim will reset. Like, for example, McCree has that, where every time he shoots, a little bit of recoil comes, and then it settles down again before his next shot. That is center gravity. You don't really have to wait for that with Soldier, just because he hasn't no recoil. If you see now, I'm just shooting the button. No view kick. There's a little bit of a field of view distortion, but no view kick. So again, for flicking, tracking, I like to just find something to focus on and try to aim on that very consistently. And for flicking, find an object and just try flicking to it. I'm not doing too good because my game is a little bit lagging because I'm recording this. But yeah, idea is you don't want to be overshooting, so you don't want to try to flick there and then suddenly you're there and now you have to flick back, or a little bit. You want to be able to flick consistently right where you want it to be. I turned up my sets just because you get a lot of places where you need to like do 180s and stuff. For me, I'd much prefer having a lower aim, much lower sensitivity to be able to consistently get these shots down, but sometimes you got to trade off. In Overwatch, however, from coming from Counter-Strike, there's a new concept that you have to take into consideration. There's going to be bullet time. Some heroes don't have any bullet time. They have hit scan weapons, much like in Counter-Strike. So, for example, Soldier. However, he also has a Helix rocket that will travel a little while before actually hitting its target, which means that you have to pre-aim a little bit and predict where your enemy is going to be at a certain point. This is very prevalent with Pharah, for example. So if I'm going to switch to her, you will see that that our projectiles aren't very fast. which means that if your target is moving, you have to predict where they're moving and compensate for that. It isn't always too difficult, but there are certain ways to make it a little bit better for yourself that I like to do. So whenever I'm targeting somebody, I like to see, how whenever I'm shooting at an enemy, I look at where my bullets hitting, right? So where did I predict that the enemy would be, and where did they end up? Doing this allows me to adjust my aim accordingly to whatever target I'm shooting at. I can be looking at. I usually try to look at if my bullets are hitting them right at the feet. So if I get a stationary target here, are my bullets hitting right at their feet, giving the most amount of splash damage? Are they hitting a little bit off to the side, which still deals damage, but a lot less? Or are they getting direct hits, which is going to be maximum damage most of the time? And it's very important for you to think about this when you're shooting, because you might be hitting every shot, but you might be hitting them pretty poorly, just like this, where you're giving minimal damage, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm hitting these shots, I should be doing good, but you're actually not, because they're not hitting like for a lot of damage. Pretty sure that's pretty much it for aiming in Overwatch. Get good, scrubs, and good luck, have fun.